On October 1, 2025, President Trump addressed over 800 top military leaders at Quantico, declaring a new kind of war, not abroad, but within America's own borders. He framed domestic unrest and urban crime as existential threats, calling for a military response and redefining the armed forces' role in American life. Trump's rhetoric was uncompromising, equating protesters and dissenters with foreign enemies. "We're under invasion from within." He urged troops to retaliate forcefully against protesters, saying, "They spit, we hit," signaling a green light for direct confrontation. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth promised to scrap restrictive rules of engagement, vowing to untie the hands of our warfighters. Trump demanded absolute loyalty from military leadership, warning he'd fire any general he disliked. The message was clear: the military would now serve as a tool for domestic control, blurring the line between national defense and internal enforcement. This marked a dramatic shift, positioning the armed forces as instruments of presidential will against perceived internal foes. Trump's declaration was followed by immediate action. National Guard units were deployed to Los Angeles, D.C., Memphis, and Portland, often over the objections of local officials. These cities became testing grounds for a new strategy: soldiers patrolling streets, quelling unrest, and overriding local governance. Trump called for further deployments to cities like Chicago and San Francisco, describing them as training grounds for the military. The mission was clear. "We're going to straighten them out one by one," he vowed, tasking the military with social and political control. This approach blurred the line between peacekeeping and occupation, as troops assumed a punitive role. By deploying troops against the wishes of governors and mayors, the administration asserted federal dominance, challenging the principles of federalism. The use of the military to enforce order in American cities, especially when framed as a war, introduced a new reality: citizens facing soldiers on their own streets. Daily life in these cities changed overnight, raising urgent questions about civil-military relations. The nation now faced the prospect of armed troops patrolling neighborhoods, fundamentally altering the relationship between government and the governed. At the heart of the controversy is the Posse Comitatus Act, which restricts the use of the military for domestic law enforcement. Trump's actions challenged this principle, using legal loopholes and the National Guard's ambiguous status to justify deployments. The administration invoked the Insurrection Act, claiming historical precedent from presidents like Lincoln and Washington. Trump argued that modern constraints weaken the nation's ability to maintain order, framing the act as an obstacle rather than a safeguard. To bypass legal hurdles, a new quick reaction force was created, operating outside traditional command structures. This parallel force, under direct federal control, sidestepped existing laws and accountability. The administration's maneuvers raised profound questions about oversight, the rule of law, and the future of civilian-military boundaries. The president's military posture sparked fierce criticism from lawmakers, civil liberties groups, and constitutional scholars. The ACLU warned that Trump was turning the military into his personal police force, violating the spirit of the Constitution. Critics feared troops in cities could intimidate voters and suppress turnout, especially in an election year. The sight of soldiers at polling places threatened to chill participation and undermine democracy. Legal experts pointed to potential violations of the First and Fourth Amendments, as military rules of engagement often override individual rights. Aggressive tactics risked violent clashes and a crackdown on dissent, eroding fundamental freedoms. Forcing soldiers into domestic policing roles threatened morale and the military's apolitical standing. The long-term consequences could damage recruitment, trust, and the military's relationship with the public it serves. The nation is deeply divided over Trump's use of military force at home. A New York Times Siena poll found 51% of voters more concerned about Trump using the National Guard to intimidate opponents than about crime in Democrat-led cities. For these voters, the threat to democracy outweighs concerns about urban unrest. Meanwhile, 42% support Trump's actions, seeing them as necessary to restore order where local officials have failed. This split reflects a fundamental divide over the role of government and the military in American life. As troops patrol city streets, public perception, whether of restored peace or escalating conflict, will shape the nation's future. Americans now face a stark question. Is the greater threat the war from within, or the weapon chosen to fight it?